If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. And he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Get your mouth shut. Get your mouth shut. Jerk.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
If worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Home Media presentation of the Limp Ditkas podcast. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Limp Ditkas podcast. We're just a couple of Chicago pricks united by our hatred of University of Michigan football and the Chicago Bears. Our special holiday edition. We are between Christmas and New Year's. Our last podcast of the 2021 season. We've got a huge division-clinching Cowboys victory, massive blowout victory over the Washington football team to talk about. The Detroit Lions almost always win. That's the new phrase for the Lions. We've got a little bit of Bears to talk about, the team we hate. Bears. Plenty to talk about there. We've got some USFL talk that I'm going to bring up, whether you like it or not, Pete. And we definitely are in the midst of a strange bowl season for the college way. So we'll get into that at the end of the show.
Seems a lot of stuff I had talked about, is going, maybe I was giving a certain conference a little too much credit.
Nice. Well, we'll get to that. But let's go ahead and kick this motherfucker off.
How about them Cowboys? I'm really, really happy right now as a Cowboys fan.
Jesus, how could you not be? What was it, 56-7? Is that the
final? Yeah, it was over at halftime, basically. It may have been over at the end of the first quarter, but
I think I saw you set a record for first half points. It was like 42-7 or something deficit, or I don't know what it was. It was ridiculous, but
there was a lot of pain administered that day.
A lot of jokes flying around. I saw the one where, or maybe I made it up, where the Washington should have considered sending their football team instead of their foosball team. That would have been better to play. There was a fight during that game, like on the football team's bench where they were fighting amongst each other.
Yeah, did you know? So both of those are ex-teammates from like Bama or something.
Yep.
I think it was Bama, right? Then they got into it because they were
getting their ass kicked.
They were getting dragged up and down the field. I mean, if the Cowboys wanted to run the ball, they ran the ball, pretty well. There was no problem running. There definitely was no problem passing the ball at all.
You were worried about that the few weeks going into this. You brought that up in the last several shows. Dak didn't look quite right, and apparently he looks right now, because that should solve assuage all your fears about the Cowboys passing offense after watching that onslaught.
Yeah, I have one fear. My one fear is they're incredible offensively at home, and they're questionable offensively on the road. So, it doesn't look likely that the Packers are going to lose in the next two games. Vikings are this week. They're fucking terrible. Yeah. And it's in Lambeau. And I'll be honest, I should have probably looked at this before we jumped on the air. I'm not sure their last game is, but they haven't played the Bears twice, have they? Or have they? For some reason, I felt like their last game was the Bears or something like that.
Try not to pay attention.
Yeah, so that's not going to be that wouldn't be an issue either. So, needless to say, most of the way these schedules have been made up is it's the Lions. That's right. I had said to you that if the Lions, can pull off the win over the Packers in week 18, that could also be having beat the Packers and the Cardinals to send the Cowboys into the number 1 seed. That would be crazy year for the Lions and the Cowboys. Somehow stars aligning. Yeah. Yes. Especially with this podcast. But they continued their, 56 points at home's only raising that already league leading 40 points per game average there. I don't know what it was. I didn't redo the calculation after that, but it's more than 40. The defense.
You don't have a spreadsheet going that runs all this?
No. But my favorite play of the game was the first offensive play by Washington, who decided, we're just going to test out Trayvon Diggs right off the bat and basically throw him a pass. Like that was the most ridiculous thing. They got the Cowboys off the field. They didn't let up any points, and I was kind of like, oh shit. And they did that, and then after that, just all hell broke loose. They just ran. They just dominated them up and down the field. It was what you wanted to see. They had already clinched the NFC East even before that win. I forget what sort of NFL math had occurred that said, well, they've already clinched it. They don't have to win today.
Yeah,
but I think they kind of wanted to just put that exclamation point on it. And they had some trouble with football team in Washington. Their offense was sputtering there, as you mentioned already, my concerns about it. But I thought going back home, they kind of remind me of New Orleans when they won the Super Bowl, not in that the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl, in that team, those years when they were competing for playoff spots every year, they were lights out at home. But when you got them on the road, it was a different story. So hopefully the Cowboys' only road game would be in Lambeau Field, and hopefully it doesn't come down to a completion of the process. I think the Cowboys defense makes them a legitimate contender for a Super Bowl run. The road offense is what could possibly get in their way. They've got Arizona at home this week, which I had circled as a huge game, but Arizona is a disaster now. So right. I think it's more of like, all right, well, we'll get this one under us and then travel to Philly and see what happens. The interesting thing about that game is I'm assuming the NFL is going to do what they do every year on that final week, which is make sure the game, I think isn't like every game at noon or something that day or something. So you can't.
The final weekend of the season?
Yeah, or isn't like
no,
isn't
I don't
like
think they
almost
do that.
Isn't like almost
baseball
like,
does that.
I'm thinking of baseball. Okay, yeah, I didn't know if the NFL did that at all.
Premier League soccer does that as well. But
well, thank you. One of the sports I follow.
That's a new podcast we need to talk about next year. So
yeah, let's get on that. So I don't know if the Cowboys will know. I don't know what the exact schedule is that week, but I'm assuming the Lions, Packers are noon, and the Cowboys, Eagles are noon. So they'll be playing.
Definitely jumping ahead there, but
they'll be playing the games at the same time. So
okay.
Well, you think the Cowboys might have a trouble with the Cardinals this week? Or?
Well, I mean, they've definitely underachieved the last couple of weeks after the Lions unlocked the secrets to destroying the Cardinals. But I don't know if that's potentially an injury with Kyler Murray that's not been talked about very much, or what's going on there. But I don't know. I just meant we could talk about this coming week. We'll deal with all the scenarios
week by week. Yeah, week by week, Pete. Take it week by week, buddy. It's the NFL. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? It's been a fucking chaos the last 3 weeks.
But congratulations on winning your division.
Yeah,
I believe did you win the division last year?
No.
Remember what happened last year?
Oh no. Remember the Red Rifle took over for us last year, and we barely limped along after that. So
that'd be the first division clinched in Limp Ditka's history in pro football. So since the Lions certainly haven't clinched a division, so congratulations on that. We've been doing this for 2 years now. Should send you a Limpy award or something.
Send me the Limpy. Send the Limpy over.
The bust of Mike Ditka.
I do have a great moments in gambling history funny story related to this game. So The good old FanDuel uses location services to determine where you're at and whether or not you can bet, not where you live. I was in Kansas visiting my girlfriend's family. I had a parlay I had picked out, which was Dallas Cowboys defense scores a touchdown, Dak throws for over 500 yards, and Amari Cooper catches a touchdown, scores a touchdown. That on a $5 bet was going to pay me $452.
Ooh.
That I was not allowed to bet. That was over in the first half of that football game.
Oh my God. So
Yeah.
you weren't, because Kansas doesn't have sports gambling?
It does not allow sports gambling.
What if you had put that in before you left? If you had done that in Chicago?
That would have been fine.
Okay, I was going to say, I was wondering if it knew that you had gone to Kansas and then canceled your bet when you entered Kansas territory.
No, it was
because the game was happening at that point.
Yeah, a lot of those, because of all this COVID stuff, they've been holding back like the touchdown score players until closer to game time. Because they didn't want people like being like, hey, I put money on this guy, now he's suddenly out because of COVID, can I get my money back? They don't want to deal with all that BS, so they hold that stuff till like a lot of that stuff is finalized or close to finalized. And so yeah, I went on, and the thing that really pushed that bet over the top too was the Cowboys defense to score a touchdown was plus 500 alone.
Oh my God.
So like it made it crazy because it jumped it to like that outrageous amount of odds because it was like, oh yeah, no, that doesn't happen. So
it did.
And
That's
it did.
unreal.
Yeah, so yeah, great moments in gambling history. Thank you, location services. I even downloaded in desperation before kickoff, I downloaded a
like a location masker.
Yeah, it didn't work. They're onto that.
Yeah,
they're onto that.
I hope you didn't pay for that app.
No, it was free for the first week. Was free. I canceled it minutes later.
Some Chinese app. Now they know where you are at all times.
Yes.
See how that works for you.
Well, it's off my phone. It's gone.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Hello, China.
So anyway, I think that closes out the Cowboys conversation this week.
Well, you brought up the COVID situation. You and I should mention, I forgot to bring this up before the show, but you and I are facing off in our fantasy playoffs this weekend.
Oh, we sure are.
Semifinals of the World of Pain Fantasy Football League. Your Inglorious Bastards are taking on my Surrender Cobras. I am just coming off my bye week as I was the number 1 seed with the best record in all of the league.
Your team's going to be rusty.
Yeah, I'm good. Rust versus rest. That's the debate for my team right now. Actually, the debate is how do I get a full roster, considering I think I have 6 COVID cases right now on my team. I'm not sure how I'm going to rotate things around. Fortunately, I think all my players aren't playing until Sunday or Monday at the earliest, so I don't have to make a decision on anybody quickly. But I didn't look at your roster too close. I'm sure you're dealing with the same shit I am.
Unfortunately for you, I am not.
Okay. Well, you could be at any moment. Maybe I needed to get COVID to go through my squad, and then I'll be all okay by Sunday, possibly. I do know the NFL changed their COVID protocol. That I believe it's now you only have to test negative 1 time after testing positive to go on the COVID list. You only have to test negative 1 time to come off of it, where it was 2 negative tests in a 24-hour span or something like that. So they've relaxed that a bit. So I don't know. I mean, everyone's dealing with the same thing in fantasy football right now, how to make decisions. But I'm wondering if all these players that are on COVID, I mean, granted, hopefully they have no symptoms and are doing well and can eventually test negative. I wonder if all of them will be back by Sunday. I guess we'll see. But that's an unforeseen factor in our fantasy battle. This will be the 3rd time you and I have played. I have won the previous 2. And they always say it's the most difficult thing is to win 3 games in 1 year against the same opponent.
It sure is. We'll see. I think the funnier part of this matchup is this guy right here, folks, didn't even know he was in the playoffs in that league and was merely just putting a roster on the field out of respect for the league and the system.
Oh, you did put in your roster.
Oh, I did put in my roster anyway, but
Okay.
for some reason thought I was in the toilet bowl tier.
No, you were the number 6 seed.
Yeah, I was the number 5 seed.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's so hard on Yahoo. I've never liked Yahoo. I'm an ESPN guy from the beginning, but I can't. It's hard to tell what's going on with that league. I didn't know when the playoffs started for most of the year. There's a way you can find out, but it's convoluted, and I didn't know 6 of our 10 teams made the playoffs. That's probably where you got confused. I would have assumed it was 4.
Well, at one point it was. At one point it was. The very first year that Sean took it over, it was 4. Well, so they must have changed it, which makes it more entertaining for us if more people get in.
I think Sean's been listening to our podcast here because his system now mirrors the college playoff system that we've been pining for, having
for a long time.
2 buys for the top two teams, and then 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 are the basically the quarterfinals. So yeah, that's how that played out. So yeah, I guess I'm not surprised you were confused. I think everyone's been confused. I was shocked.
Then I assumed I was playing Canopic because I was the higher seed. Yeah. But then I think it was just where you were bracketed.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't. And you and I matching up in this round doesn't make sense because I'm the number 1 overall seed. I should have the lowest.
Yeah, you should be going up against whoever 6 was, Pain Don't Hurt or
I don't know how that part works out either, but this works out well for the podcast as we said, it works out well for the podcast. So fuck it. Who cares? So we'll be lamenting. I'll be celebrating and you'll be lamenting this week or vice versa. Go fuck yourself. We'll see how that plays out. Stay tuned.
It's dagger time for you.
Because there's nothing people care about more than other people's fantasy teams.
Yes, I'm sure this is everyone's favorite moment of the podcast. Yeah. Us talking about our fantasy football teams playing each other.
Well, the second most unpopular thing to talk about in professional football, it would be my Detroit Lions. The worst franchise in NFL history, potentially. But as I said earlier, the Lions almost always win. That seems to be their MO this year. They come so close.
I would say there's been a lot of Lions games where, like, if the other games were sort of like, you'd be like, I'm going to watch this one because it's close and they're making a game of it.
Yeah, they've made a game of almost every game. And, it's funny. It's just the other side of that is when they win, they kind of lose, as in last week when they won. They beat the Cardinals, but they fucked up their number 1 draft slot, losing that to the Jaguars. This week, they lose, but it feels like they won because they played so well. They had their quarterback was out with COVID. Their number 1 running back has been out, DeAndre Swift. They're basically their top offensive weapon, TJ Hawkinson, was out. He's been out for a couple weeks now. So they had no weapons. They had Tim Boyle, TB12 quarterbacking, and they had a shot to win the game. Just amazing. And it's funny. People felt pretty positive in Detroit. If you listen to Detroit Sports Talk Radio and everything, they feel good about the direction of the team, even after that loss to a pretty inferior, mediocre Atlanta team. But it felt good. Even losing just to come that close. They actually had a shot to win in the last minute of the game until Tim Boyle threw an interception at the goal line that could have won the game. Tim Boyle, by the way, during the broadcast, I swear I heard his name pronounced wrong several times. Like, he's so unknown. It was Tom Boyle. I think it was Tim Bowles once. So I feel bad for our TB12. He's showing some signs of becoming a at least decent backup. He threw his first TD pass of his career to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, by the way, 35 receptions over the last 4 weeks. That is only second to Cooper Kupp in the National Football League. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had a touchdown on Sunday, that's a name you're going to pay attention to, I think, going forward. That's a receiver it's emerging as, in a normal team might be a number 2 or number 3 receiver, reliable guy. Of course, in the Lions, he'd be our number 1 right now. Atlanta, I need to back up in here a little bit and talk about Atlanta. Lions fans have a history. We might remember our history with Atlanta, recent history that would be one of the top 3 moments, I'd say. I'd rank it number 3 in ranked moments in SOL history. As in 2017, your former Golden Domer, Golden Tate, caught a game-winning touchdown from the 1-yard line in the waning seconds of their game in 2017, 8 seconds to go, actually, where he scored the game-winning touchdown, you'd think. Of course, all scoring plays are reviewed, and the touchdown was actually overruled, and quite controversially. I think it could go either way. They said he had a knee down while he was being touched by the defender, and I think you could question whether his knee was down and when the guy touched him before crossing the goal line. So they somehow determined that it was enough evidence to overturn, which I thought was ridiculous. It should have been a touchdown because it was ruled that on the field. The issue, if it had not been ruled touchdown on the field, Lions had time to get up there, and it was on the 1-yard line. It was still right there. They could have spiked the ball and had another down and 8 seconds to actually try to score again. Unfortunately, with a review that was overturned in the last 2 minutes of the game, I believe the rule was, and may not be anymore. It was an automatic 10-second runoff to a team that no longer has any timeouts, which the Lions had no timeouts, unfortunately. So not only did the touchdown get overturned controversially, the clock was run from 8 seconds to 0 by a rule, and the Lions were denied victory immediately because of a technicality. Again, if the refs had ruled that it wasn't a touchdown to begin with, it would have been, just second down, and they could have spiked it and had a chance to win. But since they ruled it a touchdown and then reverse it, the Lions lose, and it's just another amazing thing. The only thing I would put past that in SOL history, maybe number 2, would be the process catch, Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, that's horrendous.
Another rule that no one ever heard of until it happened against the Lions to lose a game. Of course, number 1 is near and dear to this podcast's heart as the interference call in the 2015 playoff game between the Lions in Dallas, where pass interference was called. The flag was thrown. They were actually, I thought they even called it on the field. Then they actually picked up the flag and said no interference. Subsequent review of it made it an obvious interference call that was somehow mysteriously picked up. That led to Lions loss. That would have been only their second playoff win in 30 years of Lions history.
I mean, nothing wrong with that one.
Congratulations to you.
There's definitely nothing wrong with that one.
But. Finally, to wrap up this Lions portion of the podcast, I like to call the SOL Sadcast. There is a historic. Today is December 30th, which is a historic day in Lions history. Jim Schwartz was fired on this day in 2013. After 5 years as coach, he was fired after a 29-51 record. 0 ties. When I was looking that up, they made sure to say there was 0 ties. I'm not even sure you could have ties back then. I think they've changed that rule since then. There could actually be a tie, but yeah, so essentially his 5 years were the beginning of the Stafford era of Lions football. Stafford, by the way, who had 3 interceptions last week against the Vikings, adding to his total of 13 for the season. Yet the Vikings could not find a way to overcome to do anything with that. So, I think that's about all I have. That's about all we need to talk about with the Lions, other than they can clinch a number 2 slot in the draft with a loss this week or
All
next
right.
week. So we're looking forward to that. They moved one step closer to clinching that number 2.
But I think they're playing a pretty terrible team this week.
Yeah. I'll get to that in a second. But the Jaguars, who have now taken over the number 1 draft slot, almost beat the Jets to ruin their number 1 slot and put the Lions back in the number 1 slot. Except Trevor Lawrence spiked the ball on 3rd down and gave them only 1 shot at throwing a touchdown pass and was unable to do so on 4th down. So moral of that story is never count on the Jaguars to do anything good for you one way or the other. So unfortunately, that did not work out for the Lions. So I don't see the Jaguars winning a game in these last 2. I don't even know who their opponents are, but it doesn't matter. They're not playing the Texans or the Jets. So the Lions can look forward to clinching the number 2 with a loss potentially this weekend at Seattle. The Lions are, like I said, are shorthanded. It sounds like Jared Goff had a chance to come back after being on the COVID list last week, but he has since hurt his knee, and I'm not sure what that means for practice. If he will be, I don't think he practiced yesterday, so I don't know what that means today, or if he'll be playing in Seattle on Sunday. DeAndre Swift is coming back, which is an interesting thing, is he's obviously our number 1 running back, and I'm not sure you really want to see him come back in these meaningless games for fear of more injury or aggravating the current injury he has. I don't blame him for wanting to get it back on the field. As any reputable professional athlete will want to get back as soon as they can and help out his team. But is it in the Lions' best interest to have him play when he's obviously had some issues? So kind of holding our breaths to make sure he doesn't get hurt in these last 2. But so, yeah, they will be playing in Seattle as another team that we love to hate here. The Chicago Bears squeaked out a victory in Seattle last weekend. I did not watch that. Did you catch much of that, or you had thoughts on that game?
Not much of it, but I caught the end of it, and so it was the one game was getting a decent amount of coverage because it had snowed there, and it had snowed a lot there. So it was the one game being played in the snow, and when the Bears won the game, I was like, what the hell just happened? Seattle had a 17-7 lead going into half. They had an 11-point lead going into the 4th quarter.
Jesus.
But what no one counted on was that Nick Foles was the quarterback in this football game. Nick Foles.
Nick.
I don't think Nick had played since week 7 of 2020.
Yeah, I haven't heard his name in a long time.
So they were down 2 quarterbacks due to injury, the Bears. That Fields and the Red Rifle were both out due to injury. So
what's going on with Fields? I haven't paid any attention to.
It's been like a knee issue, so okay. I don't even know. I don't know what the deal is this week with him. I think it's
Bears fans must be holding their breath though with their future franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Yeah, exactly. I don't know that. I don't even know why you'd play him again this year. Makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean just like I was talking about with Swift.
Yeah, you're out of the playoffs. You're not even like he's not worried about. Like I don't know what Swift's contract is. Sometimes these guys need to get in the game because if they don't play a minimum amount of games, they make less money or whatever. I mean, obviously that's not Fields' case, at least this first year probably, but like. It just would make no sense, but it was just the Seattle Seahawks are so much a shell of themselves. It's like hard to watch. I mean, Russell Wilson threw, I think, for 182 yards in that game.
Wow.
And that's, you've got DK Metcalf and Lockett still. Like you still have two, like a potent 1 and 2 receiver. And somehow the Bears hung around. The the Seahawks missed a second half field goal that would have sealed the game for them. I think it was actually in the fourth quarter. Earlier in the fourth quarter, they would have sealed the game for them. Nick Foles gets the ball back with 3 minutes and 52 seconds, marches them down the field. And if this doesn't sound funny, the score was to Jimmy Graham, Foles to Graham for the touchdown. And then some guy I never heard of scored the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
And the Bears leave with a 1-point victory. And you're like, what the hell just happened? And going into the game, there was talk that they were going to fire Nagy after the game. But like, why would you fire him at this point? There's only a couple games left in the season. It just seems stupid.
I would think they would definitely wait till the first day after the season's over. I mean, that's where that announcement's coming. But
yeah, and why is sports media bothering to drum up these stories that was he saved by this 1-point victory? No. I mean, the Bears are a terrible team, but the Seattle is just like, I don't know if Russell, like you were talking about with Kyler Murray, is Russell Wilson.
There's something going on.
He's older, but is he injured? And we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he is not himself. And it's such a huge drop off in a short amount of time that I'm not going to equate it to like age, right? I'm not going to say like this is Russell Wilson going forward. I feel like something's wrong with him.
Yeah, that's why I think it's an injury, because I don't think of him as old yet necessarily.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. So this really opens this game up for SOL to be in full effect, because this is not a good football team. There's infighting in Seattle. I mean,
I know it makes me nervous.
This is ripe for the picking.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know when the last time the Lions actually won in Seattle. There's been all those historic things like where they hadn't beaten Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh in 66 years or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a stat we'll be hearing about for Seattle. So that does make me nervous seeing the equally inept Bears go in there and get the victory. That's not what I'm looking for at this point. That's what the Lions have done to this Lions fan and many others like me, where I'm rooting against my team to get a better draft pick. We've gone through this debate over and over again. Do you want your team to win, or do you want them to win in the long term? Do you want the short-term gratification or building a healthier franchise over the long term? And that's where I lean to. I want them to lose these meaningless games to get that better draft pick, as they can, lock down that number 2 overall pick and hopefully move back to the number 1 somehow. If they win this game somehow, there's the potential they could pick number 5 or number 6 almost in this draft. Which,
yeah, you don't want that.
I'm sure Bears fans are lamenting that victory too, because they were just eliminated from the playoffs the week before, and now they're fucking up their draft slot. You've got nothing else to live for. I don't think Bears fans are that smart, though. I did some number crunching for the Lions, where looked at meaningless games over the last 6 years.
Have they played the most?
They've they played a lot. I don't know the most. They are now 6-7 in games that meant nothing after they were eliminated from the playoffs.
Holy cow!
They would have been. They were 500 before last weekend, so which is kind of crazy to think about, how they win half the time that they are eliminated from the playoffs. In all other games in that span, before they've been mathematically eliminated, they are 20 games below 500. They are 40-60. So
perhaps they should start the season as if they're eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah, this is why SOL exists. This is why I am such a frustrated, annoyed Lions fan, that the numbers bear it out. They are better when the games don't mean anything, and they fuck themselves out of draft picks when it matters least. So such is the plight of Lions fandom everywhere. Some people either recognize what's going on or they have their head buried in the sand.
Well, you might think, based on all that conversation, that my upset special this week is going to be the Lions over the Seahawks, but it's not, because
I have a stat you should keep in mind before you just shoot that down. The Lions are the 3rd ranked beating the spread team in the league right now. They're 10-5 against the spread, behind Green Bay at number 2, and behind your Dallas Cowboys at number 1, who are 12-3 against the spread.
Yeah, and they're favored in most of those games, so that's even crazier when you think about that.
Yeah, it's impressive.
But I'm not.
You're not? Okay.
I'm going a different direction. I'm going against a team we hate, the Bears. And another team I hate, the Giants. But I think the Bears, the Bears' road to glory, their comeback win is just a hiccup. So I'm going to pick the Giants over the Bears in Soldier Field plus 205. Plus 5.5 points for the Giants. If the Bears are to win this game, it's probably going to be a little bit similar to the Seahawks game where it's a field goal or less. Giants aren't a good team. Bears aren't a good team.
No.
So it could be thoroughly entertaining.
That's going to give you a reason to watch, I guess.
Yeah.
I will not be tuning in. Sorry.
Yeah. But I think the Giants are like, I'm doing this based on the fact that Giants are due for a win at this point.
And I lost Pete.
So there we go.
There you go.
I'm doing this based on the fact that the Giants are due for a win at this point. And there again, I took a week off last week because this has gotten down to a point where it's just really difficult to pick a good upset. But I think that one has the best chance next to the Lions beating the Seahawks, but I will never bet anything in regards to the Lions again in my life.
Lions are off the board for you.
Lions are officially off the board. So. Understandable.
So
there you go, folks.
All right. Well, I think we can take a break here after our NFL talk. We'll come right back though with some college football talk and even some USFL talk. But we'll be right back here on the Word Hole Media Network.
Word Hole Media.
Major League A-Holes in the Hole podcast, where baseball opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and most of them stink. Find us at MajorLeagueAholes.com and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Word Hole Media.
All right, welcome to the Michigan Panther Cast, as we like to call this portion of the Limp Ditka's podcast. I am hardcore since 1983 Michigan Panther fan. Pete is over there is not a USFL fan whatsoever. So this is an interesting experiment that we're running here on the podcast. A diehard with someone that is completely uninterested in the league, but I'm going to do my best to drag you along and get you interested. It's also the battle that the USFL itself is fighting. They've got some brand equity in people that remember the league from the 80s that they're going to be invested like me and are going to be on board from day one, but they're going to try to get people like you over there interested in the league. And we talked about that a little bit last week, how what the USFL had going for it the first time was star power. And, they had 3 Heisman Trophy winners in their 3 years in existence. So, they had, big names like Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie and Jim Kelly, Anthony Carter locally here. I'm not sure the USFL is going to be able to do that. It's certainly not in their early existence. It's just not set up to do so, especially with centralized ownership, and it's going to be a struggle for a bit for the USFL. But I do believe with their TV contracts with 2 of the major networks already, ownership by one of those networks, they have the financial backing to be successful. The not a whole lot of news necessarily that I want to talk about this week, other than the Michigan Panther Cast on Twitter, USFL Panther Cast. We have breached the 250 follower mark.
Whoa.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone that's following the Panther Cast. Appreciate that. We are rising in popularity. As I've only had this Twitter feed going for 2 weeks. So we've already got over 250 followers. Appreciate that. think my goal is to get to 1,983 followers eventually. That's going to be the goal I'm setting.
So clever.
To get to celebrate the 1983 championship, of course. But
I mean, Chicago. This is proof. If you have a bad team, which the Bears are, Detroit has a bad team. It's called the Lions. You bring in another team to play football, you will get people interested in it. That's part of what's happening with Smitty right here.
That absolutely happened with me back in the 80s, and it's happening again because the Lions have done nothing in that 40-year span to stem the tide. Michigan is starved for a respectable professional football team. So that is a recipe for success for Michigan, at least. I am surprised that the USFL didn't choose to revive the Chicago Blitz just for that reason. That might be something that could bring a non-fan like you into the fold of potentially. The things they do have on their side is it is spring football. There's little competition. If you're not a baseball fan, there's not a whole lot going on other than, the beginning of the end of the NHL season and NBA seasons. But there is an opportunity in spring football for sure in April, May, and June that the USFLs and other leagues are going to try to exploit. So that's going to be fun to see how it plays out. But the only thing that was kind of newsy this week was the potential new site of the USFL in 2022 in Birmingham, Alabama. Protective Stadium is the name of it. Kind of a strange name. It's some weird sponsorship deal, but that is the home of the UAB Dragons, I think, University of Alabama, Birmingham. That was also the host of the Birmingham Bowl this week. Houston versus Auburn. So you kind of got USFL fans got a sneak preview of what games are going to look like there. Pretty nice stadium. I think it's 45,000 seats. Really new. It's all aluminum and concrete. I watched a little bit of that game just knowing that that's where the USFL is going to be starting. So I thought that was kind of fun. I have no interest in Houston or Auburn other than I root against SEC teams. But 45,000 seats. It was packed for that bowl game, of course, because it's in Alabama where Auburn is located. I believe it's not even an hour-long drive, but got me to thinking, what's the stadium situation going to be? Well, first of all, in this first year, everyone playing at that stadium in Birmingham, Alabama, I think they'll get decent crowds, for the first couple weeks, probably. Certainly for Birmingham Stallions games, because that's the local team. But I'm a little concerned, how many people are going to be buying tickets or even bothering, even if they're giving away tickets at that point, to watch, my Panthers versus the Pittsburgh Maulers or some random matchup like that. I would love to go, but I don't see myself or even the most hardcore Michigan Panther fans getting on a plane to fly to Birmingham, Alabama. So I'm a little concerned not that they're looking for ticket revenue necessarily, but what the games are going to look like on television, as they are going to be broadcast on NBC and Fox and their cable channels. It's going to look kind of sad without a bunch of fans in the stands. So we'll see how that goes. But it got me to thinking further in the future what kind of stadiums specifically my Panthers will be playing in, as presumably they will be moving, hopefully directly after the 2022 season, to play in Michigan someplace. There have, of course, been no announcements about that. No leads on what ownership might look like, or if they're going to have local owners. I believe that is the plan. If to sell franchises essentially from Fox to local ownership, and how they will work out stadium deals there. I can't believe they will be building a new stadium for a USFL team anywhere. So I'm presuming they will be renting or coming to some kind of agreement with existing stadiums. The first one that comes to mind, of course, is Ford Field, home of the Lions, owned by the Ford family. I'm not sure that makes a ton of sense on a few levels. First of all, the Lions own the field. I'm not sure they necessarily would have an interest in helping out the Michigan Panthers. Although they did both play in the Pontiac Silverdome back in the day at the same time. I think that's where that assumption comes from, that the Panthers would immediately play at the same place the Lions do. I just there's a couple of reasons I'm not sure that would work. First of all, I'm not sure you want to put a USFL team in 70,000 seat stadium for the same reasons I mentioned, for 2022. They're not going to be drawing massive crowds immediately. I think eventually they could, as we did see, the first year of the Michigan Panthers, as they were successful, they did sell out the Silverdome. There were 65,000 people at their playoff game, which they stormed the goddamn field after winning that, clinching a berth in the first USFL championship game. Stormed the field, tore down the goalposts. It was melee at the Silverdome in 1983. You can check out some clips of that on our YouTube channel. But so there's the potential there. But again, I don't think you want to start out in a giant stadium like that. I think it might hurt the television product. But it makes you think about what other stadiums might be available. The same issue would be, not far down the road in Ann Arbor, the Big House, Michigan Stadium. But that would be even worse, as that houses 110,000. So, the 25 to potentially 30,000 people that you might be going to USFL games would look very, very small in that kind of stadium. Other potential places, would they come to East Lansing, to Spartan Stadium here, 8 miles away from where I'm sitting right now? I would fucking love that, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense for a professional franchise necessarily. They'll want to be by the larger population basis. So that I think it's going to stick around Detroit. Other stadiums across the state that could be potential, would they go to Ypsilanti, where Eastern Michigan plays? I forget the name of that stadium. That's a potential spot, not far out of Detroit. I don't think they would go to Kalamazoo or to Mount Pleasant, Central Michigan or Western Michigan's stadiums, as those are tiny. Kalamazoo is a decent sized city, but Mount Pleasant is tiny. Who's going to go to a pro game up there? The one interesting idea I saw was if the Panthers might partner with a fledgling professional soccer team that has gained a great following in Detroit, the Detroit City FC. They've built their own smaller stadium. I think it's only 5,000 seats, but if they were looking to do bigger and better things, which I have heard rumors, they eventually would like to get into MLS, Major League Soccer, and might have some major investors. They would need a new stadium. And would the Panthers be interested in partnering with them to build a multi-use stadium they're in Hamtramck, right in Detroit? That would be super cool. I think that's a really complicated plan that I don't know if has any legs to it, but I thought that sounded interesting. But so that is news for much further down the road, but it just came to mind, seeing the future home of the USFL this week in Birmingham. As I can see Pete's eyes glazing over.
Wait, are you still talking?
And again, I mentioned this is a zealot of a USFL fan and someone that has zero interest, but this is the battle that USFL is going to be fighting. I do want to talk to you directly about how we might get you interested in this league eventually. You're going to have to be interested because I'm going to bring it up every fucking week. So get ready. But
I don't have to be interested.
Yeah. You could just become a Panther fan, but there's no real reason for you to do so. I understand. And that's kind of off brand for you and me, as we've started the Limp Ditka's podcast and our baseball podcast, Major League A-Holes in the Hole, essentially because you and I hate each other's sports teams, and we talk about multiple teams and rip on each other and find ways to go against each other in many ways. So I don't think it would make sense for you to pick the Panthers in that regard. Off brand in a way. So I want to start the rivalry with the Pittsburgh Maulers, because we are the two largest social media followings, and it's the closest geographical team. But I can't see you necessarily rooting for a team in Pittsburgh randomly.
If they were the Pittsburgh Maulers, like
M-A-L-L?
M-A-L-L, then yes. But the
You're a big
Maulers, yeah. If that would have been a lock. That would have been
like
a lock.
That.
How about this? Here's what I'm going to do.
I've got a bunch of ideas, but yeah, let me know. Let me know what you're thinking.
For the sake of this podcast, and I'm going to review the USFL teams.
Okay.
I'm not going to pick Detroit. I will review the USFL teams and next week.
Okay.
Report back to you on who I'm taking as of this moment until they expand and put something somewhere that I have interest in.
All right.
Who is going to be my team against the what's the name of it? Michigan Panthers. I actually knew what it was. I'm just fucking around.
Well, I have started your study. I appreciate that you are taking the bit and running with it. That'll be great to see what you come up with next week. But I can get you started at least with the Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
I don't know about the Maulers. They do have a cool logo. I think you'll like.
That's probably what I'm going to end up picking. It may end up being the Maulers. It'll probably be the coolest logo. I'm going to go all the way back to being 5 years old again.
Yeah.
And picking the coolest logo.
There are the Philadelphia Stars there in Pennsylvania who lost to the Panthers in the inaugural championship and actually won the second championship. So you could say they're the most successful team in USFL history. I don't think you have any interest in the city of Philadelphia as they are your rival of your Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I definitely don't have any because of the people there too. They're just
that might be
assholes. They're assholes.
There are the New Jersey Generals.
Oh, that's an original team.
Yeah, they had the Herschel Walker, who was a former Cowboy. So there's a tie in there. There's also original ownership in the 80s by Donald Trump, which may or may not.
That sours it a bit.
Yeah, that might. We don't get into politics here, but that is definitely a factor in the New Jersey Generals being in the new USFL that may or may not bring fans to them or away from them. In the Southern Division, we have the Tampa Bay Bandits, which were owned by none other than Burt Reynolds, the Bandit himself, of Smokey and the Bandit fame. I know you're a Sharky's Machine fan.
I am a Sharky's Machine. Anyone who isn't is just an asshole.
That was one of our first conversations. I mean, 25 years ago when we first became friends somehow.
That's Burt Reynolds, and folks, that's Burt Reynolds at his finest. If you can actually find it, I suggest watching it.
We actually need to bring our buddy Joe onto this at some point because he might be the world's biggest Burt Reynolds aficionado. He's a huge Smokey and the Bandit fan.
Maybe we'll do a show live from Vegas.
We could. Well, that brings up the Houston Gamblers.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
They have a cool logo. They had Jim Kelly on their team back in the day. They are in the state of Texas, where your Dallas Cowboys reside. So I don't know if you were interested in the Houston Gamblers as we
might be.
Headed to Vegas in a couple weeks for your birthday party. New Orleans Breakers.
Wait, as in dancing?
It's not breakdancing. That would be kind of cool.
There's so many opportunities here. Better than it could have been the Pittsburgh Maulers. Yeah,
we were at
the Breakers.
Yeah, this is why you're not in football sports branding at all.
What do you mean? Don't.
We did have an awesome bachelor party 15 years ago for our buddy Jason Marcuson in New Orleans. So I don't know if that might spark some interest.
I think the name of the team would have been different if it was stemmed off of that.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to say on air what the possible names of the team would have been.
There's lots of directions you can go with that. Shit, I'm blank. This is terrible. I'm running a USFL podcast and I'm blanking on the final team name in the South there. Oh, well, it's not the Memphis Showboats. Well, regardless, it will not be your team name. So, or your team fandom. So yeah, that's to get you started to find your USFL team, as that's going to be what the USFL is going to be trying to do over these next few months, get people interested in their league and picking their rooting interests.
The Stallions or something?
Oh,
the Birmingham Stallions.
Yeah, I mentioned them before. That's why I drew a blank. Birmingham Stallions, the home team where all their games will be at home. So they have the built-in advantage, home field advantage, whatever that means.
It means a lot, I think.
So yeah, let's I appreciate you buying into this, at least for the moment. So do your research over the week and get back to us next week.
All right.
Well, I think that is all the pro football talk we have for this week. We are in the midst of a bizarre, I think we can call it a bizarre college bowl season. I just got done watching the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before.
No.
Sponsored by a mayonnaise company that throughout the broadcast, your former Golden Domer, Mike Golick Jr., was the color commentary guy and was trying different foods with mayonnaise, including Oreos dipped in mayonnaise, donuts dipped in mayonnaise.
That sounds about right, though.
Yeah, that's good for you.
Have you ever heard him on the air? That sounds about right.
Yeah, and just before we went on the air this afternoon, I saw South Carolina's winning coach, get doused in some watered down Duke's Mayo.
Oh my God, that's effing disgusting.
Might have been the most disgusting thing I've seen. Yeah, it was horrific. But beyond that bizarreness, we have 5 bowl games now that have been canceled by COVID.
Yes.
I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. But I don't remember any games ever being canceled in the history of college football for any bowl games, at least. So that's definitely a strange one. That directly affected my alma mater. Central Michigan University was going to the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl in Tucson. Happy to do so, to take on Boise State, which was kind of an interesting matchup. Boise State, of course, broke one of the non-Power 5 conferences teams to kind of break into the big games. They beat Oklahoma years ago, but I think they've kind of, they're a 7-5 team this year, so they're not the world beaters they were at one point. But it was an interesting matchup. But they were one of the teams that had to basically back out of their bowl appearance because of COVID. So Central Michigan was left without an opponent. Fortunately, it's sponsored by Tony the Tiger. Sun Bowl lost one of their teams. The Miami Hurricanes had to back out, and Washington State was left without an opponent. So my Chippewas were invited and glad to take the money of Tony the Tiger, as they went from, I believe it was a $175,000 deal with the Arizona Bowl, moving up to the Sun Bowl for $2.3 million. So
that's a payday, right?
Yeah, a nice little payday for my Chippewas there, as they will now take on a Power 5 conference, Washington State. They might get their asses kicked tomorrow afternoon, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a cool opportunity for the Chips, get more eyeballs in the program, and maybe they'll even surprise some people.
It's kind of funny they play in a later bowl game than Michigan State now.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing. Like Central is now going to be playing at noon Eastern time, at least, and on New Year's Eve day, just before the college football playoffs start at 3:30 and 7:30, I believe the second game starts. But tonight, on a New Year's Six Bowl, the Peach Bowl, my Michigan State Spartans are playing the day before New Year's Eve, and yet it's still considered a New Year's Six Bowl.
The eve of the eve celebration.
They take on the Pitt Panthers, and that's just another part of the weird bowl season. Is they are a New Year's Six. They've earned it, being 10-2, taking on kind of a mediocre opponent in the Pitt Panthers. Similar record. They did win the ACC.
Who cares?
But both teams are missing their best player. Both have opted out of the game. Kenneth Walker III has opted out, and Kenny Pickett has opted out. Of course, I don't blame either of them. With NFL careers, this one game away, just months away from potentially having generational wealth by being drafted into the NFL, you don't want to risk that. I can't begrudge them. I would love to see them play in this game. It would make it that much more interesting. So I'm looking forward to the game, at least, not as much as I would if the top players are actually in it. Fortunately for Michigan State, they did get their top 2 receivers back in the lineup, and their best offensive tackle this 3 weeks allowed them to heal up. Jalen Naylor and Jared Reed are back to complement the offense for Peyton Thorne. We'll see how they fare. I think the passing attack will be there, and it helps having our best offensive lineman back, who's been out since the end of the Michigan game. But it'll be interesting to see how backup running backs will fill the void for Kenneth Walker III. If it's Elijah Collins that'll step up, or Simmons is his name. I forgot his first name, but we'll see how that plays out. I don't know, how Pittsburgh will fare without their NFL prospect quarterback, Kenny Pickett. They still have their number 1 receiver, who you and I actually gave the Olympia Award to.
That's right.
For the best receiver in the country, Jordan Addison. So, it depends on who's giving him the ball.
Yeah, I was going to say, will the ball be able to get into his hands is the question mark.
Well, on their side, at least, they have going for them. Michigan State has the worst statistically secondary in the country passing defense, so they should benefit from that, but who knows who's throwing them the ball. That's kind of why I thought Kenny Pickett would want to play in this game, because going against the worst secondary in all of college football seems like a great opportunity for him to showcase his talents to NFL scouts everywhere, but he didn't want to take advantage of that. So, and again, you can't blame him, but that's how it's going to play out. So, what would have been a more interesting matchup, I think, for everybody, and especially this podcast, and we've mentioned it before, and it was rumored that Michigan State may had a chance to go to the Fiesta Bowl to take on your Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And I can't imagine how fired up you and I would be for that. The build up to that, I know Spartan Nation would be much more interested in that. But you wonder
if Kenneth Walker III's in the game then too.
I think he would be. I think he definitely would be. I think that's what the Peach Bowl on the eve of New Year's Eve did to his decision. So, but I'm sure you have lots of thoughts about your upcoming matchup in the Fiesta Bowl.
I have a few thoughts. One is you've got 2 pretty solid defenses going against each other. One a little more grounded than the other in Notre Dame. Notre Dame's not a high risk, high reward defense, where Oklahoma State is exactly that. The question is, Notre Dame's and here's where I think Notre Dame has the advantage. Notre Dame's defense gave up a whopping 23 points over its last 4 games, accumulating to just under 6 points a game is what they allowed. On the flip side of that, Oklahoma State's defense gave 66 points up in its last 4 games. So I think that's a big factor. I think Notre Dame also in the second half of the season, something I had covered a lot here, they got their running game going the second half of the season, which was a huge problem in the first half of the season. So, you add the trend, you put the trend lines together, and I'd have to say Notre Dame's going to come away with the victory tomorrow. New Year's Day.
New Year's Day
at noon Central Time.
That's a weird time. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Fiesta Bowl, I always thought got played at night, but it seems like a nighttime. Is that noon local time or noon Central? I
think it's noon Central. I think it's 1 Eastern.
That would be like 11 a.m. 10 or 11 a.m. local time, because that is in Arizona, is it not?
It is in Arizona.
Jesus. Well, that's when they got to play the games to 12, get them on TV.
12 p.m. Central, so it's 11 a.m. 11 a.m. in Arizona. But I think Notre Dame walks away with this one with the riding the mojo and everyone's positivity of Freeman.
Lifted the
think
blanket of the Brian Kelly era.
the
dark
dancing,
cloud.
the dancing racist with his southern
Whoa.
accent.
He's racist now.
Well, I mean, I
We're
don't know.
piling on here, I think.
I know. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. The dancing hypocrite. Excuse me. That's a
Here we
better.
go. I like
That's better. I don't. I believe that Notre Dame's going to win this one, 38-17.
Wow.
So there you go.
Well, I think we need to wrap this one up, as I need to get this podcast ready before the Peach Bowl starts here in a couple hours. So unless you had other thoughts about the college or pro football seasons so far?
Just real quick.
Yeah.
And I kind of teased this earlier. Apparently the SEC is not very good.
That's right.
I don't know what's going on today. I haven't seen, but
South Carolina won this afternoon.
Okay, so they have moved to 1-5 in bowl games.
Wow.
1-5. Yeah. So I'm going to eat a little crow on this one. I'm just going to step back and say I was wrong, and maybe perhaps the Big Ten is no worse or better or whatever than the SEC. I see Purdue.
Big Ten is 2-0 right now.
Well,
Purdue is playing.
Purdue's getting their ass handed to them right now. So 21-10. So from Tennessee.
Wow.
Fuck. So didn't you lose to Purdue?
Unfortunately, yes. Thank you for remembering that.
Just confirming. Just
the spoiler makers once again ruined.
Just wanted to confirm.
Season.
They must not have been able to get the big drum into the bowl game. So
yeah. Well, we will be back next week with many more Big Ten teams playing. We've got the national semifinal tomorrow night. That will have lots of news. We'll have all the New Year's Day games. We will have a national championship matchup to talk about next week. I think this has been a good year. This is our final show of the 2021 season. This is our second year in the existence of the Limp Ditkas podcast. So thanks for hanging around. Next week we will have still some Lions and of course your Cowboys to talk about, but we'll also keep you updated on our fantasy battle as you and I are matching up in the playoffs this week. So keep you all updated on that. Fuck you. You cannot survive the Surrender Cobras.
You're going down, Smitty. You're going down.
Well, with that, I think we will wrap up episode 31. You can catch us on social media at Limp Ditkas. You can find our merchandise available at limpditkas.com. You can catch us on YouTube, and you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to say this is Dagger Time. We out. Peace.
Peace. Word Hole Media.